Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are going to dismantle a common misconception about the Neolithic Revolution. When we think of the Stone Age turning point, we usually visualize the surface: the domestication of plants, the taming of animals, the clearing of forests, and the erection of permanent villages under the open sky. We see humanity claiming the skin of the earth. But this era harbored a paradoxical shadow. As humanity expanded outward and upward, they simultaneously developed an obsession with the world beneath their feet. From the windswept islands of Orkney to the sun-baked limestone ridges of Malta, Neolithic communities engaged in a colossal project of subterranean construction. These were not merely holes dug for shelter or storage. They were sophisticated architectures of the negative, complex engineered spaces designed to manipulate the senses, alter human consciousness, and facilitate communication with the forces of life and death. To understand the Neolithic mind, we must leave the light of the sun and descend into the dark. Let's begin our descent in Paola, Malta, at the Hypogeum of Saflieni. This structure, discovered accidentally in 1902, remains one of the most technically accomplished feats of prehistoric engineering. It is a subterranean necropolis and temple complex carved entirely from living Globigerina limestone. And remember, this was done using nothing but obsidian blades, flint scrapers, and antler picks. It reaches a depth of over 10 meters and spans 3 distinct levels. What is truly fascinating here is the architectural mimicry. The builders did not simply hollow out a cave. They sculpted the rock to imitate the built environment of the surface world. The chambers feature carved trilithons, lintels, and corbelled ceilings that mirror the megalithic temples of Hypogeum and Monajdra standing above ground. It is a temple inverted, a negative image of the living world projected into the realm of the dead. The descent into the Hypogeum is a journey through time and sensory deprivation. As you move from the upper level, which likely started as a natural cave, down to the middle level, the architecture becomes precise and geometric. Here lies the Holy of Holies, a room with a carved facade so perfectly executed it appears to be built of masonry blocks, even though it is entirely hewn from the bedrock. But the visual splendor is secondary to its acoustic power. Recent archaeoacoustic research reveals that the builders possessed a profound understanding of sound. The chamber known as the Oracle Room features a small oval niche cut into the wall at face height. When a deep male voice chants into this niche, the entire complex vibrates. Scientific studies have pinpointed the resonant frequency of this chamber at approximately 110 Hz. This is not a random figure. Neuroscientific research suggests that exposure to sound frequencies in this specific range switches off the language processing center of the brain, the left temporal lobe, and stimulates the right prefrontal cortex, the region associated with mood, empathy, and social behavior. In a ritual context, chanting at this frequency would have induced a trance-like state, blurring the boundaries of the self. Imagine the sensory experience, descending from the blinding Mediterranean sun into cool, absolute darkness, smelling damp limestone and ochre. Flickering fat lamps cast dancing shadows against walls painted with red spirals. Then, the chanting begins. The standing waves created by the architecture make the sound omnipresent, appearing to emanate from the walls, the floor, and your own chest. It is a visceral, bone-shaking experience. The Hypogeum was not merely a place to store the remains of the 7,000 individuals found there. It was a machine for the transformation of the living. While the Hypogeum offers a vertical descent, the passage tombs of Atlantic Europe offer a horizontal journey into the earth. From Brudnaboyne in Ireland to the cairns of Orkney, these monuments consist of a long, narrow passage leading to a central chamber, covered by a massive mound. For a long time, archaeologists debated if these were houses for the dead or temples for the living. The consensus today is that they were liminal zones. The architecture is explicitly anatomical. The plan, a long passage opening into a rounded chamber, resembles the female reproductive system. To enter the tomb is to return to the womb of the Great Mother. At Newgrange in Ireland, constructed around 3200 BC, this symbolism is activated by the cosmos itself. The monument is oriented so precisely that at sunrise on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a beam of sunlight penetrates the roof box above the entrance. It travels down the 19-meter passage and strikes the floor of the central chamber, illuminating the triple spiral carvings. For 17 minutes, the dark womb is impregnated by the light of the sun. This was a ritual act of cosmic regeneration. In the depth of winter, Neolithic people engineered a moment of conception to ensure the return of life. The acoustic properties here are equally significant. At Maeshowe in Orkney, the central chamber is a vast, corbelled cathedral of stone. A hum or drumbeat here generates standing waves so intense they can be physically felt and can even cause dust to dance in the flickering light, creating a visual manifestation of the spirits. Recent DNA analysis of the bones found in these Irish tombs adds a layer of social complexity. Genetic testing suggests a dynastic lineage among the buried elite, with evidence of close kin matings, mirroring the practices of later god kings like the pharaohs. The acoustics and alignments were likely theatrical elements designed to reinforce the authority of those who held the keys to the underworld. However, not all subterranean structures were tombs or temples. Some were industrial, yet even here, the distinction between the functional and the sacred blurs. Consider the flint mines of Grimes Graves in Norfolk, England, dating to around 2600 BC. Miners used antler picks to dig vertical shafts up to 13 meters deep through solid chalk to reach the floorstone, a layer of jet black flint. This effort was colossal, involving over 400 shafts. Why go to such lengths when surface flint was available? The answer likely lies in the symbolic value of the deep earth. Flint was the steel of the Neolithic. To extract it from the deep bowels of the earth was to harvest a material that was perhaps considered more charged or potent. The archaeology of Grimes Graves reveals that mining was a ritualized activity. In the silent galleries, miners left offerings. One famous discovery in Pit 15 included a small altar of flint lumps with a chalk carving of a fat female figurine, the so-called chalk goddess, and a chalk phallus, flanked by piles of deer antler picks. The symbolism is potent. The shaft is a penetration of the earth. The carvings represent a fertility rite. They offered antlers, symbolizing the wild power of nature, in exchange for the bones of the earth, the flint. This was a dangerous, hallucinatory environment. Lit by burning animal fat, filled with acrid smoke and chalk dust, the claustrophobic tunnels would have induced altered states of consciousness. Mining was a perilous descent into an alien world. We also see this fascination with the underground in the dwellings of the living. In the Yangshao culture of Neolithic China, villages like Banpo consisted of houses sunk halfway into the ground. In the Levant, the Bir Shiva culture lived in complex subterranean networks. And in this same region we see the usage of caves for ossuary burials, where bones were placed in ceramic boxes decorated with faces staring out from the dark. It suggests a worldview where the dead must physically return to the rock from which life springs. So why did they do it? Why the immense labor? The answer lies in the phenomenology of the space. Underground spaces are liminal. They exist on the threshold. First, there is sensory deprivation. In the deep dark, the brain hallucinates, a phenomenon known as the prisoner's cinema. Second, the acoustic shadow. In a stone chamber, sound is contained and amplified. A drum beat hangs in the air, creating a sonic wall. For pre-industrial people, the booming voice of a priest in a passage grave would have sounded supernatural. And third, thermal constancy. The deep earth maintains a constant temperature. To enter a passage grave in winter is to enter a warm embrace. In summer, a cool relief. It reinforces the idea of the underworld as a place of eternity, untouched by the passing seasons. In conclusion, the Neolithic obsession with the underground was a form of spiritual technology. These were not people hiding in caves. They were master engineers who treated stone, light, and sound as malleable materials. By blocking out the light, amplifying the sound, and stabilizing the temperature, they created controlled environments for ritual. The first sensory deprivation tanks and the first concert halls. They built downwards to find the eternal, and in the silence of the rock, they found a way to speak to the ages. When we look at these structures today, we are witnessing the fossilized psychology of the Stone Age, a time when humanity realized that to understand the height of the heavens, they had to plumb the depths of the earth. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.